truth for the battered but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and we've got Bob Savage here with us.
Yeah, more or less, I'm both Bob D'Angelo and myself today, so I'm not one Bob, but two.
Two Bobs. Wow, that's, man, do you have to talk with somebody about that, Bob? I mean...
Well, I talk to myself all the time anyway, so it's a net change of zero, apparently.
There you go. Yep, you're carbon neutral at that point. And we've got a guest with us today. We've got Armando on the line. Armando, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So today is, I think, everybody's favorite day of the year. It happened on a different time this year. No, I'm not talking about Christmas, guys. I'm talking about tax day, where the government either says you didn't pay them enough or that you've overpaid them and given them an interest-free loan, and you get to find out, what money they will give back to you, and you get giggly and excited and think that you have extra money gifted to you by the government, but really it was your money to begin with.
It's true. Yep, so today is possibly the last payment of tax day for 2019. And the reason why I say possibly, I got thinking about it, and if you file for an extension today, you might have another payment of tax day in October of 2020 to finish up your 2019 taxes. So heads up for you late filers, you still may have one more day in this year to feel the pain, so to speak.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, and I don't know if you know the answer or not, but say somebody didn't file their taxes by, I'm assuming it's by end of day today. All the COVID stuff happened. They just lost track of time. They didn't call their CPA or run over to some big box store that does taxes for them. They wake up tomorrow morning and go, oh crap, I was supposed to file an extension. Is there some sort of penalty or fee that they pay by filing that extension and extending their taxes out?
Yeah, there may be both, depending on the individual situation. And that's the hard part when we talk income taxes, because there's a lot of different possibilities. So when I say there may be both, there's a late payment penalty. That's number one. And if you owe money, there may be interest due on the amount you owe. And often that interest can be calculated either from the due date or the first of the year. So it depends on, I believe, what generated that taxable income and tax liability difference.
Hey,
Complicated enough?
Yeah, Armando, real quick, Bob Savage here. So it's the thing that needs to be emphasized here is the extension that you would file for to October. It's really to file. If you owe tax, that's still due today, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I went through and I filed my extension till October this morning, so I have some firsthand experience. It's a very simple form. You do have to put your name and your address and your social security number on it, and you can find it on irs.gov. Then there are three dollar amounts that are put on there as well. Your amount of tax due, the amount of tax you paid, and then the difference. If it's a negative number, that's good. That means that they've got enough of your money and you might get a refund. You put 0. If you owe something, let's say you owe $100 after you do your math, well, they say you should send something with the extension request.
Interesting.
All right.
So let me ask this question, because I imagine people listening to the show right now, either on our live stream or on the radio or maybe on podcast even, if you're filing for an extension and you know what you've paid and you know what you owe, what is the purpose of filing the extension, and how do you already know what you owe without having your taxes prepared?
Well, there might be a couple reasons. Let's start the first question. Some people, myself included, file the extension because of maybe the feeling of protest or time constraint. I used to teach school, and April 15th wasn't always a good time for me to get my taxes done. So I wanted more time. So that's a reason why you might put it off, even though you got a pretty good handle on what the outcome is. Either you're getting something back or you're going to write a check. The other thing, go back to the protest for a second. Some people just feel like, I spend my money, I pay all kinds of taxes, sales taxes, real estate taxes, excise taxes, taxes at the gas pump. I'm just going to hold off. They already got my money. If I have to send them a little bit more, they'll get it in October. So.
Okay. Yeah. I guess that kind of makes sense. Now, normally, because I know this year is obviously weird, extended, dates jumbled around because of COVID, does that mean that typically in a regular non-COVID year, I call it BC, before coronavirus, would that mean when you file your extension on April 15th, you would still have till October, or is that date closer?
No, you'd have to October. You could always send it sooner, but you do have to October.
Okay. And then if somebody misses the October deadline, what happens? Does the IRS just knock down your door, jack up your house, and walk away with it, or what happens next?
Well, traditionally, or historically, I should say, it takes maybe 2 to 3 years before they catch up to that delay. I don't know if you saw the newspaper article in the Democrat and Chronicle just the other day. I pulled it out and kept it next to me. It seems like the IRS is way behind the 8 ball. So even people that are getting refunds, and they may have filed in February or March, are still waiting. And it's because I've heard that the offices are down to maybe 1 or 2 staff members, and everybody else has been sheltering at home, or whatever you want to call it. So sadly, this is why I stopped doing tax preparation. It doesn't get better as the questions are asked as the time goes by. And that's why I'm for getting rid of the paycheck taxes and the income tax as we know it, and coming up with a national sales tax to cover our federal liabilities. And we like to do the same here in New York State. That's what the SMART tax freedom is about. And the acronym SMART stands for Simple Math at Register Tax. No forms, no reporting of your wages, no reporting of any income from investments or retirement accounts. You pay extra at the register. Just like our gas tax, which most people don't even know, that here in Monroe and Ontario County of New York State, almost 80 cents a gallon goes to the tax man when we buy gas and put it in our car. But most people don't know that, because we just pay what the pump requires.
Well, and my favorite thing about that is that people often say, Andrew, if you eliminate the income tax, how will we have roads? And the answer is you've been paying the road tax when you buy gasoline for forever. That tax is already covered. You're going to have the roads. All right, guys, we're going to take a brief break here on Radio Free New York. We'll be back in a moment. When we come back, we're going to discuss alternatives to income tax. We'll be back shortly.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Catch a wave at Waldameer.
Waterworld opens daily at 11 with a giant wave pool, water playgrounds, relaxing river, and exciting body and tube slides like the incredible new 6-lane Rally Racer. The Rally Racer is the longest, fastest slide in Waterworld. Come experience the excitement as you race your family and friends. And Waldameer opens at noon with a variety of thrill rides and family rides like the exciting new Whirlwind spinning coaster. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, Waldameer is limited to 50% capacity, so there's no free admission. Guests must purchase admission tickets at waldameer.com or at the park. Children under 1 are free. Face masks are required. So visit waldameer.com, purchase your admission tickets, and come have some fun.
Catch a wave, catch a day at Waldameer. Your wet and wild summer getaway. Excitement waits for you at Waldameer. Waldameer in Erie, PA.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We've got Bob Savage here with us as usual. And we've also got a guest. We've got Armando here with us. And Armando is talking about alternatives to income tax. And I want to kind of preface this conversation with technically, I guess any tax is really an income tax, right? When we think about it, you're spending your income on that tax. So it might be unfair, and I think Drew in the Facebook live stream might have been pointing this out, so that's why I'm elaborating a little bit. That, yeah, technically, if you're making income and then you spend that money on tax, I guess all taxes are an income tax. So we're talking about alternatives to how income tax is currently calculated today. And we have so many different types of taxes. They all have various names. You know, we've got sales tax, gas tax, estate tax, and the list goes on and on and on. And then fees, you know, which are really just hidden taxes. They just call it something else. But they're all taxes. So Armando, why don't you tell us a little bit about, because I think you were talking about fair tax and smart tax, and I think they're different things. Why don't we start off with fair, and you kind of explain that to us, and then we can maybe in the next segment talk about the smart tax.
Okay. The fair tax is actually a proposed bill, H.R. 25. You can look that up on congress.gov, and it's been around, probably since 1998-ish, give or take, so going on 20-plus years. And it proposes that we eliminate the income tax as well as the IRS, and we replace it with a national sales tax. The main reason is to simplify the whole income tax process, do away with paycheck taxes altogether, so you take home your gross paycheck, not something that's already been reduced. It would also eliminate the Social Security and Medicare deductions that come out of our paycheck, and also what the employer has to match, which is, roughly the two of them that combined is 15.3% of our gross. And we take our paycheck home. We bring the fruits of our labor home, and we spend it as we choose, and we'll pay a national sales tax at that point. It's been very difficult to get Congress people to move on this. At one point, we've had over 70 co-sponsors, but they come and go. Even Vice President Mike Pence was on that list some years ago when he was in Congress, and I'm not sure why. So that's the national fair tax. The bill itself is about 130 pages. It's not that bad to read, and it does have some qualifiers. For example, a new car would have a national sales tax, a used car would not. And I caution everybody that it's only a proposal. It's never gotten out of the House Ways and Means Committee. Thank you, Congressman Tom Reed, for the help there. And I'm not sure if it ever will. Now, what's been successful recently is that different state organizations, different fair tax state organizations, there's one right here in New York, which is called Fair Tax New York, and they're on Facebook and so on. They found that if they approach their state lawmakers and try to do an affiliate law in a state to eliminate the state income tax, they've been successful. So, for example, Florida has no state income tax. Texas has no state income tax. Tennessee has no state income tax. Alaska, Vermont, I believe the state of Washington. So there's these initiatives, these state initiatives that have been growing, and you can look them up on fairtax.org, the website, and you'll see that we have something going, and we just call it the smart tax here in New York to help promote it, to make it easy for people to remember. So that's it in a nutshell. But again, I caution everybody that nothing is finite. And once our lawmakers get serious, God only knows what they can come up with.
Yeah, so right off the bat, as I hear about this and I think about it, of course, like a ton of questions surface for me, and hopefully for listeners, hopefully you guys are listening and thinking you've got questions too. And if you do have those questions, please send them my way. Jump on Andrew C. Hollister on Facebook or YouTube. Put in your questions. My first question is, why do you think it's been stuck in Congress for 20-some years?
The simple answer is that the opposition, which would be, sadly, tax attorneys and accountants, are a very strong lobbying group. And they like the 70,000 plus pages of income tax legislation, which gives them a lot of work through the course of their career. That's the simple answer. Fairtax.org The national organization is called Americans for Fair Taxation. We're very fortunate that our current chairman, Steve Hayes, is a retired tax attorney and accountant. And he's seen the light. So he's fighting that swamp you hear so much about. Well, the people that are in favor of a complicated income tax are members of the swamp.
Okay, so right out of the gate, you're thinking there's a strong tax lobby, CPAs and tax preparers and probably people who work for the IRS, because it sounds like if this were to pass, the IRS would be either eliminated or greatly reduced. So you think the first hurdle is going to be that group, CPAs and people that work for the IRS?
Yes, and also the proposed bill, again, which is subject to change, has addressed those concerns. The IRS, for example, would be retooled. Chances are it's very difficult to get rid of a bureaucratic employee. So they would be reassigned to something a little bit different, because one of the proposals in the Fair Tax HR 25 bill is that everybody, based on household family size, how many people are in your household, would receive a monthly refund or reimbursement for a certain amount of the sales tax that you paid on purchases that would be attributed for necessity, medical purposes, things that have a sales tax to. I'm not sure if food's going to be in there. Again, it's all subject to change. But let's say
So
you live in
things
a
that are
family.
normally sales tax free, is that kind of like a safe thing to say? Like in New York, for example, food you don't pay sales tax on, certain services you don't pay sales tax, so it would follow a similar model?
It may be, because I want to remind everybody that the New York State income tax is a separate animal. These two do not really live well together, so they're in separate cages, if you will. So the federal fair tax will operate on its own because it's a federal law. So will the New York State sales tax. Okay, so
yeah.
let's not.
So
crisscross
one's
them.
not going to replace the other. The idea of this federal sales tax is to replace federal income tax, but would have no bearing over state income tax or state sales tax.
That's correct. And I would also add not only I call it a paycheck tax, because a lot of people still earn paychecks and they see what's coming out every pay period. So people, if you want that for every $100, you got $20 to $30 you don't even see or touch. If you want that in your pocket, the fair tax will help with that.
All right. Yeah. No, that makes that makes sense the way you're explaining it. I do have a question here from Nicholas on Facebook. He says, "So a fair tax system is a consumption-based tax," and that's meant as a question. He's wondering if the fair tax is a consumption-based tax, and I think we've only got about 2 minutes.
Yes, it's based on what your purchases are at the register, and it doesn't matter what country you're from. So New York City has millions of visitors. Well, they used to before the COVID. but when New York City had millions of people from around the world come visit and they bought things on Fifth Avenue, they too would pay that consumption or purchase tax. So, when I hear consumption tax, I also think about maybe even your utility consumption. I don't want to mix them together because that's another separate tax that will survive on its own.
Yeah. So that's interesting. The thought that this tax would apply to people who visit here, but aren't necessarily citizens or even working here. They're here as tourists, and that would add and feed into the tax system. So that's interesting. That's a concept I hadn't quite given thought to during the discussion. Guys, we're going to take a brief break here. We're going to be back in a moment on Radio Free New York.
Now, more than twice the power.
WYSL.
More powerful FM 92.1, FM 95.5 West, and 1040 AM WYSL Avon Rochester.
Here's the latest forecast from the Newstead NBC Weather Center. Beautiful summer day coming up. Plenty of sunshine, nice and warm, humidity not bad. Temps today will get up well into the 80s. For tonight, mainly clear to partly cloudy. We'll stay in the 60s to near 70, a bit warmer out there tonight. Tomorrow, more humid, temps well up into the 80s, and there could be a strong to severe thunderstorm late in the afternoon Thursday. I'm Rich Cornelia, WYSL.
In honor of the late Bat McGrath, a well-known singer and songwriter from upstate New York and a true friend of Camp Good Days, Lou Graham has donated a guitar signed by past and present members of Foreigner. This guitar will be raffled off to raise money for Camp Good Days. The funds from this raffle will go directly towards renovating the music activity hut at Camp Good Days recreational facility on Cuke Lake. The hut will be rededicated in memory of Bat McGrath. Raffle tickets are 1 for $10 or 3 for $20. The winner will be announced at the Music Hut rededication at Camp Good Days on a date to be announced. Visit campgooddays.org or call Camp at 624-5555 for more information.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
She walks with intention. She gets attention. She wears Leg Avenue. Everywhere she walks is the Leg Avenue. Walk. Mercurial girl, little things, plethora of stockings, lace garters, beautiful chemise, shiny mesh satin, silky, sexy, ropes for wrapping, stunny stretch back, messy jersey for cling. She is the girl across the world. She is Leg Avenue girl.
Leg Avenue at Show World.
I'm Las from Action Towing and Service. What you can expect when you come to Action Towing and Service to get your vehicle fixed or checked out or diagnosed is the detailed description on what the vehicle requires. You can also expect to know exactly what the plan is going forward, whether it's something that you can wait on the repair or whether it's something that needs to be repaired immediately. We make sure that you know exactly what the vehicle requires. Come down and visit us at 275 Marketplace Drive, right off of Jefferson Road.
Here's to looking forward, to resilience, brighter days, and support when it's needed most. Like sharing $20 million with members right now. It's more than a thank you. It's giving back to help our community thrive. Because with ESL, you're part of something bigger. You're our partner in growing Greater Rochester. Get details about the ESL Owner's Dividend at esl.org. Qualification for the Owner's Dividend and membership subject to eligibility. Payment of a dividend is not guaranteed.
Livingston County Pizza Company and Gluten-Free Bakery in Avon has it all. Specialty pizzas, mozzarella sticks, onion rings, skillet meals, even hamburgers and panini sandwiches, along with a full gluten-free menu. Take the family to Livingston County Pizza, where everyone can have their favorite.
Stay in your car, let us do the work. The Avon Gasway on Route 39 features all-American Valero gasoline, full-service gas island, plus ethanol-free gas, on and off-road diesel, crystal clear kerosene, propane exchange, free tire pressure check and air. Open daily, the Avon Gasway, Route 39.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We've got guest Armando here with us on the line, talking about fair tax. And just to kind of catch you guys up, if you're joining the show right now, it sounds like to me that the idea of the fair tax is a federal sales tax, and it's intended to replace the federal income tax, which sounds like it's got some benefits, like not having Social Security taken out of your paycheck. Sounds like you wouldn't be paying payroll tax, some of that other stuff. And it sounds like if tourists come into the country and spend their money here, that money goes into that, we'll call it a pot or bucket, it goes into that pot as well, which is kind of interesting because I've been traveling to Europe for a long time. For those of you who may or may not know, my wife is actually from Czech Republic. So we've gone there to visit family, we've traveled there, and I found out last year that while you pay a VAT tax on products while you're in Europe, on your way out, when you go to the airport, you can actually get refunded all of that tax if you're not a European citizen. So I found that pretty interesting. I'm not quite sure how that works with the system, but we did file our paperwork, and sure enough, we got all the VAT tax that we saved receipts for was actually refunded to us later after our trip was completed. But it is interesting to think that, how many people do go to Europe, pay VAT tax, and don't know about that. I didn't know about it. And all that money also goes into their tax system. So that's pretty interesting to me. Why don't we talk a little bit about what the smart tax is now? So tell us, is the smart tax the same thing just on the state level, or is it something totally different altogether?
No, pretty much it is the same thing on the state level. A few years back, there was a gentleman from Victor that did a lot of research, and he came up with a fair tax white paper for New York State, which showed the numbers, how it can be done. And what would happen here in New York is that we would eliminate our New York State income tax and all the filing that we just have to deal with so many times a year, and replace it with a increased sales tax. And I believe he came up with somewhere around 12%, give or take, which when people first hear that, they think, wow, that's outrageous. But when you stop and look at what's coming out of your paycheck, it's probably somewhere between 5 and 10% to begin with. We have the New York State disability coming out, as well as that now for the parents, there's a certain amount coming home so that you can have family leave. You add that to what you're currently paying. I think in Monroe County it's close to 8%. Ontario County it's close to 7.5%. And it's the same amount of money, but it's distributed differently. The key is that we get our money, our paycheck, before the government, and that's going to change the whole power flow. Right now, the government pretty much tells us what to do, and that's not the intent of our system of government. So when we get our money back, they're going to listen better.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially, I had a situation years ago that really changed my perspective entirely about getting a quote-unquote tax refund. I had a situation where I had filed my taxes. I had always done my taxes up until this point to get a tax refund. And then what happened was, and it was never like a huge refund. It was always usually pretty close, $100 or something like that. Not like some of the friends I know who they get like a $2,000 or $3,000 tax refund, which to me is just an interest-free loan to the government. So I went through the situation and they audited my taxes. They wanted a copy of something from the college I had done some courses at to prove that I was indeed a student because I got some sort of tax credit for being a student. Well, the college either sent the wrong paperwork or didn't respond. I don't know what. But the IRS sent me a notice saying I owed them additional money for taxes. So I go through, work with the CPA at the time, and turns out the IRS was wrong. All the other paperwork was right, and it just wasn't the case. Well, the IRS being as difficult as they were to go through, this dragged on for 3 years. And while this was happening, the IRS, I had other refunds that I was supposed to be given, and the IRS held all of my refunds and all of my money and basically said I couldn't have it because they thought I owed them for one of these other years. So it took a number of years. I finally did get my money. Of course, it cost me way more in fees to have a CPA sort it all out than I ever got back, anyways. But from that point forward, I made the decision that I will never give the government extra money. I would rather owe, whatever that amount is at the end of each year and give them the money after I've had everything double checked and I know for sure. And if they want to try to seize more of my money, it's going to be harder for them to figure out and harder for them to get access to it because when they had my money up front, they just took it. And it was up to me to try to fight and prove otherwise that they were wrong. And I think I clocked about 40 hours of my time personally between calling them, sending them letters, working with the CPA, working with the college, getting the paperwork. This whole circle and dance ended up costing me about 40 hours of my personal time over, this money that they basically held and took from me because they had it as a refund.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And if you think about the flow of tax dollars, right now it goes from our paycheck and our employer to the federal government, and then we send lawmakers to Washington to bring back the bacon, which is totally backwards. If the money was in our pockets first, we have more power over our elected officials and hopefully our bureaucracies as well. So the flow of money is important here. I compare it to, let's say as a parent, I have an adult son or daughter, and I tell them that I'm going to take 30% of your paycheck and provide you all these different services. Well, am I really helping my son or daughter become an independent citizen, able to take care of themselves and maybe my grandchildren? Or am I keeping them in their place, which is pretty much under my thumb? So there's some moral issues to the income tax as well, and I want people to think about that. I read a book some years ago, it was written in the 1950s, and it was titled "The Income Tax, the Root of All Evil." And it was, if you think back then, that was only maybe 30 years before the income tax, 40 years before the income tax, after the income tax was put in place. So now the question has to be asked, so what are we going to do about this? And I'm hoping that people listening today, if they need help contacting their lawmakers on the state and federal level, please let us know. I'm available on Facebook. You can look up Let's Fix It on Facebook, or my first name is Armando. Marianetti is my last name. And I'll be glad to help you. And we're going to even ask the new row of candidates that are coming in for the November election to sign a pledge that they will help fight for a fair tax to eliminate our income tax.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. And if you're listening to the show and you feel strongly about this, please, yeah, definitely engage and see if you can make this happen. The biggest issue I have with income tax, I guess I've got a lot of issues with income tax, but probably the biggest one that anybody can relate to is that when you have an income tax, you don't own the fruits of your labor. And that's just it, plain and simple. Guaranteed, unless you're evading taxes, which I understand a lot of people do. But you don't own about 30 to 35% of your labor is not yours because of taxes, because of income tax, federal and state combined. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other taxes in there as well. So I think that that's definitely something that we should all be looking at, something we should consider. We're going to go on another brief break here, but when we come back, I want to talk about kind of the implications here about collecting this tax, some of the mechanics, how would it work? I see a couple comments here in the live stream that this could actually make internet sales a lot easier. So we'll talk about that when we come back on Radio Free New York.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Aircraft Environmental Systems proudly supports Radio Free New York. Rochester-based leaders in climate simulation chambers for America's R&D laboratories. We're experts in troubleshooting, calibrations, custom designs, and consulting for more than 40 years. Industry pioneers, we created the first ever fleet of temperature, humidity, and altitude test chambers available to rent coast to coast. Trained and trusted by environmental chamber manufacturers, we are ACES. Find us at acesinc.com.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York.
All right. right. Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. I've also got Armando Marianetti with us here on the line. We're talking about replacing your standard income tax. The income tax you see coming out federally, the income tax you see coming out statewide, and replacing them with a sales tax. So there would be a federal sales tax. States already currently have a sales tax, so that could be modified. But there's a couple questions I've got. But before we do, I do want to hit some of the things mentioned in the live stream. Matthew says he wants to hear my opinions on property tax. We will definitely spend a whole entire episode on property tax because I certainly couldn't fit in the end here, but I've got some thoughts about property tax, so we'll definitely get to that. And Jay on Facebook actually mentions that think about the drug dealers who will be paying taxes. When they go out to buy clothes, jewelry, vehicles, everything taxed. And I would say that extends to basically anybody flying under the radar. People who aren't currently paying taxes for one reason or another, they still shop at the store, typically speaking. So if they were evading or avoiding federal income tax by doing their work, quote unquote, off the books, yeah, theoretically, if you switch to a federal sales tax, that wouldn't be the case because as they're purchasing products, then there's no avoiding those taxes. So that stuff is interesting, worth talking about. But Armando, what I'm wondering is, how does the federal government get their money? I know how it works with the state. How would the federal government know? I guess they technically don't need to know who's paying the sales tax, right? They just need to collect it from the merchant at the end of the day. How would that work?
Yep, that's correct. I mean, we have the system in place right now. In every retail store that you go to that charges a New York State sales tax would have to modify their collection to collect the federal sales tax. Now, some have suggested, again, I remind everybody, this is all subject to debate and change because nothing is in place yet. So here's a possibility that when you go to purchase a taxable item, you're going to have on your receipt an itemized federal sales tax and your New York State sales tax, just like it currently is with the state. That retail outlet will have to forward the money to either the state agency, which will send it to the federal government, or to an additional federal agency. Now, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out, but as a business owner, I might feel more comfortable sending a separate amount directly to a federal agency, just like we do our income taxes, because I don't want the state, which is a very slow-moving, not very efficient organization, making a mistake with my receipts, my collections of a national sales tax. So as a business owner, what's the difference? I'm filling out forms now for New York State. Okay, I'll fill out forms for the federal government. As long as I don't have to do an income tax form and a corporate tax form, I'm probably better off.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to be honest, so obviously my company, we do sales tax. We file it every quarter. We send the money to the state. The software does, I want to say like 99% of the work for us. We run a report from the dates. It says this is how much you did in sales, this is how much was sales tax, and this is what you owe the state. We plug the numbers in. A few days later, the money comes out of our accounts and goes to the state. I think the software companies would obviously have to put in some updates to track 2 separate sales taxes. But once that's implemented, it seems like a lot simpler. But I could see where people would be really concerned too, because right now we have like things like write-offs, mileage, and all the other stuff. And my guess is that stuff wouldn't really matter anymore. So one thing, you wouldn't really have to track it, but people might be worried that they're not getting their write-offs anymore because there's no income tax to write it off on.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because a lot of people bring that up, and I remind people, family members included, that when you write off $1, you're not saving $1 in taxes. You're only saving, depending on your marginal tax rate, somewhere between 10 and 30%, give or take, okay? So I spent that dollar on a business expense. I get to save maybe 10 cents to 30 cents in taxes. Well, if I'm going to buy something and I know there's a national sales tax, I'm going to sharpen my pencil and make sure that that dollar I spend will bring me enough profit and income to afford the fair tax. It actually makes you more aware of what you're spending on and where your money's going. And I'm going to use the gas pump again, because that's kind of how a national sales tax would work, just like when you go put gas in your car. The people that run the gas station have to pull out of your price per gallon federal, state, and county taxes. So if they can do it, I'm sure other retail outlets can.
Yeah. No, it seems to make sense to me. I'm sure some people could come up with a couple downsides. I know the number one thing I hear about this, and maybe not in relation to what's called the fair tax, but just talking about a federal sales tax in general, is that people are really worried that this would implement, but the income tax would not go away, and the government would just have a sales tax and an income tax and just be taking even more of our income.
I've heard that argument, and that's a possibility. The H.R. 25 bill proposed by the Fair Tax Organization, the actual Fair Tax Act, eliminates the 16th Amendment as part of its structure. And I know that that's going to be difficult because there's a process for that, but it cautions us not to fall for that trap to have the two taxes. And there are some bills out there that mimic the fair tax that are going to do exactly what you said, Andrew. They want to implement a national sales tax in addition to the current income tax. So that is a danger, and that is why we need Congress people, lawmakers in the state that we can contact and remind them. We have to be their conscience, if you will. And, in recent history, that doesn't work so well.
All right. Awesome. Very good. So if you're interested, check out the Fair Tax. Find Armando on Facebook. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Radio Free New York. We will be back, same time, same place, tomorrow.